Global producers, distributors, and rights holders, why are you waiting for license fee payments from your productions, both new and back catalogue? Pipe buys your entertainment receivables and turns it into upfront capital immediately. Pipe can help you pull forward up to 5 years worth of contracted license fees from all the major streamers and broadcasters, so you can use the capital to produce more, acquire more, finance more, and grow your business on your own terms. Sign up today at pipe.com/entertainment. That's pipe.com/entertainment and start fast forwarding your receivables now.
TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to another TellyCast. On this week's show, we feature the second panel session from April's TellyCast Content Funding Festival. This panel looks at 3 very different alternative funding models and features Rob McRae from New World Film Finance, Eric Collins from Impact X Capital, and Wayne Mark Godfrey from Pipe. It was moderated by The Bridge's Amanda Groom. And sorry the recording isn't as great as I'd hoped from the live event, but stick with it. It's an interesting and lively discussion. And who knows, one of the speakers might be able to finance your next production. The panel was sponsored by Pipe. I hope you enjoy the show.
I'm Amanda Groom from The Bridge, which bridges between the US, UK and Asia in co-production, both factual and drama. This whole session has come out from the fact that there are now so many options for content producers. However, there has been so little until now help and guidance as to how to reach out and get the finance that you need in order to make the content, so you can take advantage of all the opportunities. And I have the best panel, and this really is what this day is all about. It's the nub of it. It's the money. It's the finance. Sitting on my left is Eric Collins, Impact X Capital. Next to him is Wayne Mark Godfrey, GM of Pipe Media and Entertainment, and then Rob McRae from New World Film Finance. So these guys, each of them is a very different model of finance. So over to you, Eric. Go first.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks for inviting me to be on the panel. So Impact X is a venture capital firm. We are an organization that invests in digital technology, health, education, lifestyle, and media and entertainment. We decided that media and entertainment made sense because we believe that there are actually models that can work just like venture capital. I can invest in an organization and get the same returns if I invested in a sure tech company. But after looking at the entire industry of media and entertainment, looking at gaming, looking at esports, looking at live entertainment, we decided to focus not on independent film because it's impossible to make that really work, but instead to focus on direct-to-series television. Direct-to-series television has some of the same dynamics of venture capital, other investments that we make. So for instance, we start off in the development phase. We want to have IP-backed businesses, IP-backed sort of projects. The IP is obviously proven in some other sector, whether it be a podcast, whether it be a book, whatever it is. We want to buy the IP. We always work with a production company, which is an established production company. They bring the project to us. We purchase the IP or option on their behalf. From there, we then fund everything which is going to happen in the development. We want to take you through to the end of that process. We take out the commissioner. So the commissioner is not part of our process where you actually go and say, I'm going to Channel 4 and I'm going to work with such and such, Alf Lowry, who worked with me on The Moneymaker that I hosted last year. But we don't do that. We say instead, let's take it, create the whole project, make it and package it up. We want to have the script. We want to have the Bible. We want to have the treatment. We want to take all of that along with the people who are attached. And then we want to be able to take that to a variety of potential purchasers. So we want to take that to Netflix at the same time we take it to the BBC, at the same time we take it to Canal Plus, and at the same time we take it to PBS. And then to take it out and talk to them about, do you want to be part of the next phase? So we've done the development, we own the development along with the production company. Would you like to do the production? That's our business model. We have 13 projects. We just we'll be announcing pretty soon our second project that was sold to HBO, which is an animated series about a young black girl who discovers her superpowers when she becomes an adolescent. We always work with underrepresented entrepreneurs, so we work with people of color and women.
I'm Wayne. Nice to meet you all. I am the GM of Pipe. Pipe is a marketplace for buyers of insurers, pension companies, banks to come on a platform and buy reoccurring revenues from SaaS businesses, subscription businesses, property rental companies, and anyone with a reoccurring revenue that they can trade. And recently, my prior company, Purely Capital, was acquired by Pipe, and I'm now running the media vertical of Pipe. And what we do is we buy long-dated contracted revenues from the big streamers and broadcasters. So when you're licensing your shows or your library to Netflix, Amazon, Disney, BBC, and you get a nice long-dated payment where they're paying you over 2, 3, 4 years, we will give you the money today so you can go and acquire more, make more, run your business how you want to, and we'll wait for those 2, 3, 4 year payments from those broadcasters and streamers. We work globally with producers, distributors, rights owners, and in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Hi there, good morning everyone. So New World Film Finance, we conceived it a couple of years ago, myself and a former colleague who is one of the funders within New World Film Finance, specifically to attract funders into this space, into this sector, that wouldn't normally fund within the sector. So previously we'd had a lot of experience working with property development, with business startup and with tech startup. And we identified that in this sector you've got some wonderful projects, really credible projects with serious individuals and companies attached. You've got a huge amount of demand, but the block is often the money in the middle. And so as a result, I think we probably lose hundreds of projects each year that would have been great, but just didn't have a chance to succeed. In a way, you can always see that across our panel, because here you've got someone with development funding, someone with the end funding, and what we've tried to do at New World Film Finance is get that middle bit, that bit in the middle, to really make the whole process flow. So how do we attract these investors into a sector where, frankly, the type of investor that works with property development or with tech startup is terrified of this sector? Where's the security? Where's the guarantee for the return on investment? How do I know that we're not going to lose all of my money? So these are the kinds of barriers in the past which have stopped a wealth of investors that are out there from actually working within the sector. So at New World Film Finance, we've put in place a process and used our experience and the experience of our board to develop a series of financial instruments that can help mitigate those risks and protect the investor's money through the process of funding the actual production part of the project. So yeah, that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just picking up on that, if you look, and you can talk about this a great deal more, if you look at how much money it takes to build a big property development, for example, let's say we were talking the other day about £14 million, that in fact really doesn't go very far with a TV series, particularly not in drama. And so hence this is a risky sector. With everything that's happening in the tech world, though, now, with shares dropping, as we know, in Netflix, etc., this is a ripe industry for increased investment. However, what New World Film Finance is trying to do is increase some security for the investors. But really, one of the most exciting models here is the catalytic capital, the fact that Eric's model is actually driving change. Do you want to talk about that?
It's interesting, Amanda, because what the other panelists have said is absolutely true, that there is a lot of opportunity. Everyone understands content is key to a lot of the business models which actually exist, right? Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, et cetera, all those places need a bunch of content. So content is actually king, queen's arena. The challenge that you do have is that there is such risk that's associated with it. Things like, if you want to invest in the next Google, people understand how that actually works. It feels as though you're looking for home runs. You're looking for these very big sort of outsized returns coming from pre-existing projects like the Marvel universe. And that everything else, if it can't deliver at that sort of level, and you can't prove that you're going to be able to deliver at that level, is very unattractive, because you need outsized returns in order to be able to do what we're doing. We commit to our investors that they're going to be getting 10 times what they put in, and we're looking at a period of 3 to 4 years. That's not even a production schedule for most things.
No.
So we have to figure out a way that we're going to be able to get those individuals comfortable enough in putting their money into this. And one of our founders, a guy named Lenny Henry, who probably you all know, is one of the people who said that, you know, the issue of investing in television and the challenges that people face in terms of creating new and interesting content is amplified in the creative space, as in the same way that there are problems and there are challenges in the technology space. And so we went about trying to solve that problem by saying, is there a sector in which we could actually put in small amounts of money up front and then help to reach milestones, and those milestones then trigger a higher valuation where other people become interested and then want to take on the next level of funding. For us, that has been particularly effective when we're talking about people of color and women who traditionally find it difficult to get to commissioners anyway, find it traditionally to get commissioned, and then even if there's a successful show, find it very difficult to get returning series. We try and take some of the risk out of that, and we try and bring in another set of investors who are going to look at this a little bit differently than the jaded eyes of people who are the usual gatekeepers within organizations, and try and put this into trying to put the question of, is this an investable opportunity, into another light. That's what we do. And it's been successful. You know, we're still in process. It's only been going on for about 3 years, but it is in process, and we think that we are going to be able to prove quite decisively that this is a good place to invest.
Okay. I'm getting so many questions already.
Oh, are you?
Yes, it's brilliant. Thank you, guys. Although they're all anonymous, so there's... Anyway, one of them, are you doing only scripted? Eric, that's for you. Are you...
No, we're doing only scripted. No, we actually work in... scripted is very big, so we do period drama. If you look at Variety from last year, Variety did an article about our 3 projects in France. There's a Dumas project about Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers, who was a black man, and The Three Musketeers were actually based on his father, and Chevalier Saint George, another black man. So it's all about black men, but it's not depicted that way. So we have a project about that that's a period drama. They compared it to Bridgerton. We have another project that is about James Baldwin, when he lived in Paris. And then we have another project about Blind Ambition, the first African team to actually go into a blind wine tasting competition in Bordeaux. We have that's a comedy. The other ones are period dramas. We will do a little bit of factual that's a little bit more like docuseries, and then the final thing that we will do is no, that's it. That's it. That's it. Those are the 3. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Animation. Thank you. You should be on my team. Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us more, drill down into how your process works, and it'll interest you to know already. I've got a question here, what do Pipe charge? So people are clearly wanting to use you.
Very good question. How much are you willing to pay? No, so my background is in film financing. So I have been around content financing for basically my career. I funded about 125 movies, raising and investing close to $400 million into a wide array of projects. And what I found in 2017, 2018 was we were making these films, and increasingly Netflix and Amazon were coming in to buy or license the rights in various territories, but then they were going to pay me over 2, 3, 4 years, which is super inefficient when you want to turn your capital, put it back into new projects, or you can just give your investors back the money so you can go again. And when I went into the market looking for a solution to refinance that paper, there wasn't really an efficient way to do it. And actually, if you go back to the banks or the people already involved in the financing of the movies, they don't want to give up their first lien position or their security package to allow a new guy to come in and take out a piece of the collateral, even if it's accelerating cash to them. So we went about trying to find build a product that would complement existing structures around financing. So whether you have development financiers, IP owners, or production financiers who are already involved in those assets,
but then we can come in and still provide the service where we can accelerate receivables, and we do that by being a buyer, not a lender. So we don't lend money, we don't take warrants, liens, secondary collateral. You don't have to put up your house or your business. We just buy the income from a license agreement. We crystallize that revenue, so you get paid immediately on closing of the deal, and we then wait for the long-term drip revenue. Increasingly it's becoming a bigger problem, and any of you guys who have already been licensing content to streamers and broadcasters, whether you have IP from your back catalogue that maybe you're relicensing, or even just getting long-dated payment terms from new projects you're working on as producers. So producer buyouts with Netflix is increasingly becoming an interesting challenge where you get paid your fee in the budget, but you won't get your buyout for 12 to 24 months later. So we can give you that cash today. What we charge and how we charge is a matrix. So it's not one price. We basically price based on 4 factors. One, who is the obligor? Who is paying us? Netflix, Amazon, Disney, BBC, Channel 5, they obviously have different credit ratings, and so we have to price accordingly to the credit of the various obligor. What is the tenor of the contract? How long is it? Is it 1 year or 5 years? How frequent are the payments? Are they monthly, quarterly, or a bullet payment at, say, the end of the term? And then we have a lot of proprietary data because we acquired tens of millions of dollars of contracts and thousands of payments. We have amazing data on how well these guys pay, how frequent they are, what the challenges are, and we use all that data to help also calculate the price. It's not like I can turn around and say this is the price, but it ranges from around 3.5% to 4.5% per annum on the reducing balance of your contract. So incredibly cheap and competitive, even if you compare us to a Barclays or a Coutts in the UK or the global banks elsewhere. So we've built a product, and the reason we can get that pricing, by the way, I should say, is because we aren't like a source of capital. It's not like we have a warehouse line from, another big bank that gives us money at a certain price, and then we put a margin on and sell it to you. We actually have a global buyer pool who buy these receivables through the marketplace. So we effectively are just feeding you into that marketplace, putting that Amazon or Netflix or BBC income into that marketplace. And then there are bidders and buyers all over the world who are basically competing to get that asset at the cheapest price. So we are, in turn, reducing our capital to you, so that actually the more this grows and the more competitors there are to buy these assets at a cheaper price, then the cost to you as a customer also reduces. So it's a pretty unique model. Mm-hmm. It's the first of its kind in the world. Yeah. We are pretty new. Piper's a $2 billion company. Been around about 2 years. It does about $1.5 billion a year of funding. It's about 8,000 global customers, and we're happy to be part of it now. And we've originated. I started February 1st, so 2.5 months we've originated $85 million of receivables. Just to give you concept of scale and that kind of thing.
And I think really what we're saying here is that it's time in a way that producers almost need to be as creative with their funding models as with what's going on screen, because these are really different models for us to be working with. But there are an increasing number of models, not as good as these models, because they're hand-picked, each of you, to be on this panel, but there are an increasing number of models that are available to producers. So it's really about finding the one that suits your particular production. Now, let's drill down a bit more into New World Film Finance, because that is also a very new and evolving model.
We were introduced last year at MIPCOM as the new kids on the block, and I'm still trying to hold on to that a little bit. Still a new kid on the block. So, I suppose a little bit about my background. I've worked a lot in security and then the human rights sector. I think the thing that brought me to the attention of the funders with whom I'm working at the moment is I raised 86 billion and plugged it into support for victims of human trafficking and modern day slavery between 2014 and 2017. And I developed a really strong working relationship with the funders around that then went beyond that work that we were doing together. In terms of New World Film Finance, there's sort of a little bit of everything in terms of what we need in order to be able to fund and invest in the content that you're making. So we obviously have an interest in distribution deals, sales agreements at that end. It's one of the things that we do as well. We monetize those.
How much do you charge?
So, unlike Pipe, we work with individual funders, individual investors. So, for example, if you were working, I'm going to tell you, if you were working on a project with New World Film Finance, you would actually be working with an individual, a person who has got an interest in your project and as a result decided to fund it. And so our investors expect a return on investment of 10% per annum, starting at 18 months after the initial money goes in. And that is to take into consideration the waterfall of revenue that happens over the years following that. But it's not the only thing that we do, which is, because I was chatting to these guys before coming on, I actually think there are many ways that we can work together, because we do the middle bit. Mm-hmm. Wayne's company looks after the end bit, and Eric does all the development bit, which, particularly what Eric's doing there is bringing that sort of fertile ground and allowing new projects to grow to a point where they're strong enough to get that production funding plugged in. We also would look at the IP of a company. We're doing one at the moment where not all of the sales agreements were in place, around half of them were, but the company has a really good portfolio, well-established people, creators within the company, and so we were able to work with the company to do a valuation on some of their IP, not all of it, just some of it, enough for us to then be able to secure part of the funding against the IP, which is important, because I think one of the things that that we have to do in here is we also have to, I think we're more successful if we can look at the sector through the eyes of the funder within this field. Mm-hmm. If you think about the kind of guys that and ladies that I'm working with, they will look at a property development and they'll say, okay, so I'm going to pay 10 million for the land. It probably cost me about 8 million in building fees and legal fees and architects' fees, and that I know that I'm going to sell it for another third or 25%, 30% on top of that. So why would I come into this sector where production companies are saying to me, no, we haven't got any security, you can't take a charge, but I'm really good. and look at what I did last year, and I think, there is an element of that where, that wonderful portfolio that, many of you have absolutely is taken into consideration. But when you look through the eyes of the funder, we want these people in our sector. And the reason we want them in our sector, apart from anything, ethical sourcing of funding is really important at the moment. And that's why kind of in our organisation we're really keen on working with individuals. We work in partnership with IYE Global and IYE Legal, and we do a really strong due diligence in partnership with the production company on actually where the funds are coming from. And I think that that's very important in this day and age. One of the other companies we're working with, they're in the middle of production. Their production absolutely ground to a halt and fell down. Maybe some of you in this room have had the experience with what's happening in the Ukraine at the moment, because the funding was Russian and it's not available anymore. So I think, that partnership with a strong global due diligence company is really important to kind of protect all of us from world events, but also to make sure that you're not going to do a project where, it gets released 6 months down the line and then it comes up on the 6 o'clock news, but do you know where they got their money from? It's to avoid a lot of that. But so this brings me back to attracting these funders into this sector. Being able to see it through their eyes really helps, and it allows us all to work together. We want them in our sector because it's ethical funding, because they're serious professionals, as much as they will learn from you in terms of how the sector works. You will also learn from them in terms of business processes that take place outside of the sector that could revolutionise this sector, work really well within it, so that we can increase the amount of content that we're creating, because the demand is there.
I'm interested in what you say, and as a financier who's invested a lot of money in this space, I do understand some of your positioning, but I feel I have to take a different view.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to take the view of the producer and the rights owner, and giving away security over your entire company or prior rights to fund new projects, to me, is a real challenge for producers and companies with IP, because it just restricts their ability to monetize their business in other ways. And from my perspective, and the way we built Pipe was that we're here to empower you to go and make whatever you want to make it however you want to make it, and not feel pressured that you have all these other financial institutions watching over your shoulders or taking liens over your business. And you don't want to be, in my view, you don't want to be selling your future revenue streams and your IP so that you can generate capital. Just sell the revenue stream from within a license, which is capped and termed, and then it comes back to you. And then you might do more licensing or more sales. But I feel like it's a difficult situation if you're continually needing to give additional collateral and security to fund new projects. And I appreciate why financiers want it, because everyone wants to de-risk their investment. I just think it puts a producer, especially production companies, in a potentially really tricky spot where they're then capped and limited of what they can do. Because if you have a lien over the rest of my assets to make one show, well, the next show I make, I've got nothing to be able to give. And so I'm now limited until that has repaid or recouped. I think having sources of finance that can be very project specific, like you're doing, I don't know whether or not you are cross-collateralizing your investments or not. That might change my whole opinion. But if they are single picture financing, which it sounds like I think it is, then it's clean. You know, you have these single projects, you have the investors around it, they're aligned to that vision, that strategy, that product, and then all your other assets, all your other IP or other ideas are also ring fence so that you can go and do whatever you do and grow your businesses kind of on your own terms.
So I don't disagree with that, and I think, you know, we would be very careful about getting a balance within a company about how we would secure the funding. Remember, it's not a sale, it is security against funding, where, you know, we would hope that you believe as much in your project as we would to be able to fund it. Is an important aspect of that. But also, there is a kind of small thing within that needs to be addressed, which is when you're funding or you're drawing your funding against the revenue, against the distribution deals that are in place, often the money doesn't come in at the point that the company needs it. And that's the bit that we're trying to address. We're trying to address the bit so that the money can come in earlier in the process and actually allow the project to be made, rather than coming in towards the end of the process, so it enables you to make your next project, which I think is really wonderful. But we're often working with companies, even well-established ones, but they actually need the money at the beginning of the project. That's addressing that gap there.
That's a really big issue, isn't it? Probably for everybody in this room as well, as to company growth versus having the funding for your project. You know,
that's why I think there's something here that the three of us could do that would encapsulate the whole project.
That takes you from cradle to grave. I would say that in terms of ImpactX, we are specifically looking at equity investment. So when I think about sort of risk profile, our risk is we believe in very high risk. You've got companies, Netflix, Disney, who've already said we're going to pay you over this period of time. That's a way downstream. We're starting at the very beginning, that you have an idea, you have something, you have a little bit of IP, and that's where we want to partner. And we actually want to create a partnership, and our equity is in your company. So we're not taking anything for it. We're not going to take any payment back. We're going to take, if we can increase the value of this, we get to share in the increased value of the assets. That's what we're doing. And so that's what happens in all investments. So if you invested in Amazon or in Apple when it first started, you're looking at the increase in value that's going to come years, if not decades later. We're looking at the same thing. We're saying that if we put this money in, we partner with you, we are able to do these types of things in this particular fashion. Not only will we reduce the amount of time that's going to take you to get to market, to an actual place where you have a milestone that someone else will say, that's interesting enough for me to put additional money in, but we're going to be able to do that in such a way and increase the network of people who actually want to see that. And so we create also auction dynamics, which then increase the value. And that then builds your reputation. And for us, it also builds a reputation of the people who are working on these projects. And then we get this entire sort of a flywheel and an entire ecosystem of other creators. That's what we're looking to do. So it's that sort of an ecosystem creation. Again, once we get to the point that Disney has said, we're going to give you 4 years worth of I'll give you the money for that. That was easy for me. Mine is a little
similar to our approach as well. It looks much more like we own sort of part of the project or part of the company that we then expect to grow. Sort of in terms of agreements and contracts, it looks much more like that.
Drilling down into some of this, how do you make your decisions? What's your decision-making agenda?
Can I just tell you, Amanda, our decision making, we are investors. We are not producers. We are not commissioners. So people who come to us and say, this is going to be the next such and such, that is great. But you need to say to us, and then show us the financials that are going to show how this happens. I need people who understand that there's such a thing as a waterfall. Who gets paid first and who gets paid last? I need people who are going to come to me to say that there are ways of thinking about this that are talking about financial returns. How do you help me to see how I'm going to deliver a 10x return? Please don't come to me and just say, I have a great idea. There's Peppa Pig 2. That is great. And you can say to me Peppa Pig 2 and then show me the comps that are and why you are going to be the Peppa Pig 2 and how that is then going to lead to merchandising and how the merchandising is going to be the major revenue stream and how this is going to deliver within a particular period of time when we get to the second and third seasons, how it's going to because we're going to partner with Hasbro and Mattel. That's what I want to hear. People who come to me and just say that they have a great idea, they don't do very well with our organization because they're not in a business mindset. We need you to think about our interest and say, your interest can be satisfied while ours can be satisfied in the following fashion. And then we can lay that out and put a plan together. And that's, I think, the hardest thing when I'm talking with creative producers. We fall on two different sides. Those who are really interested in the awards and Oscars and the Emmys and those sorts of things and BAFTAs, and then those who are interested in, we have something that we believe can actually be revenue generating. And when those two things happen together, that's the ideal partnership for us.
That's your sweet spot.
Yeah, that's our sweet spot, and that's the evaluation that we have to do. Are you those people? Because we have to look you in the eye and say, are you those people who are actually going to be able to do that? And you can't just do it once for us. You got to do it time and time again because we want to continue investing with you. Eventually, we want to invest in your company because we invest in projects first, and then we invest in your company because we want a piece of that also because we believe that we can actually grow your value so that you can become, what's Ruth Witherspoon's organization? Morning something? Yeah, that. We want to be able to say that eventually you'll be selling for $900 million to some other organization who believes that you're a fantastic thing. We believe that there are lots of assets to be made and lots of value to be shared among the various people who are involved in the project.
Wayne, same question.
We don't care what it is. I don't care, you can make whatever you like, it can be anything. As long as it's got a contracted revenue from an investment grade streamer and broadcaster, I'm in. I mean, no, truly, it's like we're not creatively involved in the production process. We wish you well. We hope you make great stuff. We only care about what your contract is worth.
Yeah.
That there are no performance or risk that the streamer or broadcaster may not pay. And yeah, we can give you money in a few days.
Quite handy. Rob, what about yourself? Decision-making process.
So it's kind of like a cross between the two of them, which is, we don't mind who you are, but the project, we would hope is good. We do have experts involved with the work that we're doing to make sure that that's the case. We would look for kind of either strong track record or an absolutely phenomenal idea where our business guys can see that it's something really special, or seasoned professionals with a strong track record, good project, good talent attached to the project, both behind the camera and in front of the camera, and some good financials that have been well thought through and credible behind the project.
And Rob, are you working with algorithms as well? Do you have an algorithmic decision-making system?
No, we're not.
You're not?
We're not. We're on a project-by-project basis.
Okay. But yours is yours, Wayne, algorithm-based? No.
No algorithm. Again, and make what you want.
Okay.
Sell it whatever you want.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know.
And then if you instead of waiting 2, 3, 4 years for payments, I'll give it to you today. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Simple.
And what we've tried to do is make it so simple, where you don't have to spend 3 months negotiating with a bank or waiting for an investment committee for someone to say this or get, listen, we are on a different risk spectrum to equity development and investing in projects from the beginning when they are initial ideas that have a long tail of process and work and for it all to come together. Totally get it. And here you've got much further to that starting point, or you're at the starting point, but you need the capital to make the show. And obviously the risk profile from equity, originating ideas, to funding production, to where pipe come in, where you've made it, it exists, it's been delivered, there's no performance risk, we don't have to worry about whether or not you are going to deliver or finish it. We just come in and say, you don't have to pay 10% per annum on payments over 3 years. Yes, you needed that to get you to a finished product. And you don't need to give equity away or dilute your business if you own an asset, which you probably do at the beginning to maybe get investment in your company to maybe make that asset. But instead of that, just crystallize those revenues to give you more capital to maybe develop internally without having to do equity, or maybe to fund your own production so you don't have to outsource more capital, or just to refinance the whole process to reduce the kind of costs that are going out of the business. So it's a very simple, streamlined product. We are building a production product as well. That will be maybe 12 to 18 months down the line, where we will fund productions on the same kind of financial terms. It will only be against deals where there are long-dated payments or payments from milestone payments from broadcasters and streamers. So when you have, say, a commission that pays over time or a negative pickup that pays at the end, we will be able to do those and tax credits. And again, they'll be super cheap and super simple and super fluid because we're a tech platform and we're not a bank. And we buy, we don't lend. But I totally understand the different risk profiles and the objectives of the different strategies. But yeah, we'd have no issue with
And Eric, none of your stuff is algorithm based, is it? Are you, or is it?
We're mainly a technology investor. So we spend a lot of our time looking at ways that we can actually, and we have a very small staff, our entire investment team across all these categories, and we invest around Europe. 80% of our investments are in Europe, 15% in the United States, and 5% are in South Africa. So we have to, with 5 people on staff as investors, we have to figure out ways to leverage. And so we use a great deal of technology, and we make sure that it's very democratic how you get to us, because we want to make sure that we see everything as much as we can see. And then we have to use a little bit of data science and then a little bit of intake form and then a tiny bit of AI in order to evaluate whether or not you meet the basic criteria so that we can then prompt a secondary conversation. That's what we do. So that's how we use AI.
It's really interesting because in researching for this panel, there's a tech platform slated, and they're a packaging service working with film, primarily based out of the US. But my goodness, they have an extraordinary algorithm that awards points to scripts and people and cinematographers and all of the both behind the camera and in front of the camera. And by doing that, comes up with a figure and then appoints money accordingly. And they claim certainly to be particularly successful by doing it through numbers. They were behind La La Land and Moonlight working. They're not just working in film, but it was very interesting that there are different levels. No, that's good. Do you know more? Because I did say they claim. They claim.
I mean, they have a pool of buyers, investors.
Yeah, and they match them.
And they try and pair them together. They're not physically investing.
No, that's right. They are matching. It's a matchmaking platform.
That invested in La La Land and then joined the platform. And so there's a poetic kind of license to say we invested in La La Land, but it's like saying, if I watched the animation show over here, or I made an investment in another animation, and then I joined just on another capacity, I don't know if you would claim that you funded my animation project, but either way.
I didn't understand that, but I think I would.
Either way.
I'm sure I claim, yes, that I had done it.
The point is, they are an algorithm tool. They
yes,
do try and take data points that says, well, if your script is 92 pages and it's on this theme, and maybe it's got 5 points instead of 7 points. And it's cool. It's different. It's new.
It's different and it's new. But yet to be proven. But
don't you like the idea, though, that there could be, if you use algorithms, hopefully technology, and this is not actually the case, is unbiased. And then what we try and do with some of this would be to try and take some of the bias that we have for preferences. You know, I'm a BBC person and I like these sorts of things because the people who watch BBC are this age. You know, people who've proven this in the past. And then in fact that we try and put some other things into the world. And if we can actually create technologies that are not actually industrializing bias, but meaning making bias so much more biased and sort of getting rid of everyone, but instead make it somewhat unbiased, you would actually hopefully get a broader set, and that would still be predictive of success, because all they're trying to do is to say that what we can do is that if you're using an algorithm, is to try and predict this plus this plus this is much more likely to get you to this. It's just an equation. And so you're trying to say that this equation should work, and it would be nice if that actually worked.
I think for that benefit, it's amazing. You know, to democratize the way that people can get access, anyone can be able to put things in front of people is brilliant. I still think people need to use their gut and their taste and their, you know, their experience to actually say, well, actually, I think this could work, or I think this has potential, or actually, I believe in this creative team. I don't think a computer can necessarily determine whether or not a production company, producer, director, and an asset, because so much of it is about the collaboration and the creative kind of process that I think it's very hard to algorithmically determine that. But
that's where the bias comes in.
Yeah.
Because my taste, what I think makes good sense, what I think is good, who I think makes sense in those positions, who should be the cinematographer, who's going to be the award-winning director, those people tend to look alike, don't they?
I don't disagree.
And so then we enter very much in a bias space, and we are trying to combat that bias in other sorts of ways.
Yes, that's an essential difference with impact X.
It's absolutely imperative.
Yes. Drilling down into rights, what sort of rights position do you take in...
The producers continue to retain their rights. We believe it's absolutely... We don't want to come into a situation and then become the big bogey and the person who takes everything, and then we're the organization that benefits from that completely. We do partner around those, but they get to retain their rights, as they should.
Thank you.
Or stay with the
producers.
Absolutely the same. Right, stay with the producers.
So it really does become a functioning model for producers. Can we drill down a little bit into your preferences of genre as well? Because I'm getting a lot of questions about documentary, factual. We have addressed drama, of course, but are you doing factual programming as well?
But you have got, again, when you come to me with the factual, you have got to tell me this factual is going to get me 10x what we put in. You've got to come with that. And does that happen in documentaries a lot? In terms of docuseries?
That's a good question.
Well, it depends on how cheaply you make it. But when we think about sort of what is, after all the waterfall occurs, can our investors who invested in the development stage be able to get back a 10x? So if you can show me that, we are happy to documentaries. But we found it very difficult to look at docuseries and find that to be the case. We would love to do one thing that we would love to do is a format, because we believe that there's a format that actually is factual. So if you did something like, I can't think of one, The Moneymaker, and then you sort of took that to different countries, that might be something that you would actually maximize the revenues that are associated with it. So we do that, for sure.
It's interesting because there's some really, really good proven documentary makers here who might approach you afterwards. When genre, again, it makes no difference for you. It's just all about the numbers. Okay, moving swiftly on. Rob, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I think we would like to be more involved with documentaries at New World Film Finance. There are a couple of barriers. One of the main barriers being that we tend not to invest below 5 million in a project, and often documentary projects do not cost that much to make. You know, it would work if we had an investor in one of our consortiums that was particularly passionate about a theme that a documentary maker was wanting to work with, and then they would then it would become a passion project for them alongside the production company. That would work, but because they need to be persuaded to work with less money. And the other bit is around, on the whole, our relationship with our individual funders and our consortiums is they would look for that 10% return year on year at that sort of 18 to 24 month point in the project. And it can be difficult, unfortunately, for documentaries to achieve that. It's not personal at all. You know, on a personal level, I am a big documentary fan. I watch a lot of them in the production company that I'm affiliated with, where one of the other company directors is here today. We have 3 or 4 documentaries on our schedule that we're looking at. Big fan. But yeah, for funding, I think documentaries are challenging. I think, apart from you, on the whole, whoever's going to fund it, it needs to be a passion project, because it's probably not going to make very much money, or it could make a lot of money, some do, but it's not going to cost a lot of money to make, which then an investor thinks, crikey, it's $500,000.
Is it worth it?
Is it worth the hassle?
10% per annum, is that till the money's back?
No, up to a maximum of 20%. Yeah.
Do you want to just drill down into what producers actually need to present to you to make your system sort of kick in?
So you see, when we first started out, we had our model of this is what we were going to do, and it was simple, and we were going to simplify everything and going to solve all the problems. And of course, that never happens. We've had to grow and develop a lot. So initially we started off very much in this space around distribution contracts and sales agreements, monetizing those. But for our proposal as a company, that didn't actually address what we were wanting to do, what we were trying to do, which was to come in earlier on in the process, kind of at the end of the bit that Eric does, where someone has got a great deck, they've got maybe a teaser, money has been plugged in to develop the product so that it's, ready to move to the next stage. That was the point that we wanted to come in on. So that's where we started having conversations with the funders about, look, the distribution deals, the sales agreements, that comes in slightly later on in the process. Often, after, you maybe will get one before you finish making it, which is what sets the ball rolling, but then the other ones come in afterwards. So that would be great to fund the company for the next projects that they're doing, but we need to come in at this point where, there's interest from a broadcaster, but there isn't a sales contract in place. How can we do that? What do you need? And of course, the first thing, for the guys that work in the sectors that they work in, obviously the first thing they came back to us, they said, well, does the chief executive have a house? Yeah, he has. Do you want us to have a conversation with him about his house? And we go there. This actually happened. So go to him and say, look, the funder really wants to fund you, but he wants a second charge on your house. What? A second charge on my house? So go back to the funder and say, well, look, he's not prepared to give him a second. And then you say, well, he wants me to believe in the project, but he doesn't believe in it. So, you have to break through all of that, because it's not actually about that. Those are just cultural differences between how business is done across different sectors. So then we move on to the next bit, which is, okay, so within the business context of the sector, what kind of things can we start looking at? And an obvious one was looking at elements of IP with previous projects. Also, this works particularly well with kids stuff, and that is elements of IP within the product that they're actually trying to sell. Because if you're working with a company, for example, that did Bob the Builder, and they've invented a new children's character, even before it's released, that IP has a value because of who put it together. And so, and this isn't us valuing, this is where we've actually managed to convince the market that they can put a value on that before it's released, and then we can use that to secure the funding and then release it once the funding does. See, it's not a sale. We're not. That's the other bit that's slightly different in terms of how we operate, and slightly different from you actually, Eric, which is we don't expect to grow with the growth of the project or the growth of the company. We absolutely want to keep it simple, and there is a cut-off point for us, so we will go up to that 20% piece, and then we're out. And we're on to the next thing. And I don't know, the reason we structured it like that, it was more of a gut feeling rather than, probably it's not a very sensible financial decision, because we can put something in that's, money into something which is fantastic, and then goes on and sells for 500 million, and we've all lost out because it happened at 3 years and not the 2 years where we all jumped ship. But we just I think we wanted to be agile, because it is a bit clunky, because it's project by project, we're working with individual funders, so we wanted to be agile. But also, I think, I'm hoping you're picking it up from when I'm talking to you, I opened up by saying, it's really important that the sector sees things through the funder's eyes, but I'm also hoping that you're feeling that as much as we want to make a living out of doing this, We really want you to be successful. I actually come from your sector from many years ago, and I came out of it, came back in, came out, came back in again. And you know, one of the reasons that I'm in this sector now is because I'm really passionate about it. I think it's incredibly important, the work that we all do, whether it's fiction, whether it's for entertainment, whether it's educational, whether it's for children. What we've tried to put together is a system where we can really sort of work with you, where you understand us, we understand you, and we can make it work and kind of really feel good for all of us that are doing it together.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Looking towards the future, Eric, you're doing so, and you're not the only ones now who are sort of reclaiming some of the power from the broadcasters and the networks, and sort of taking the power back to make the programming without necessarily having a commission or whatever. Is that how you see the future going? There are more companies working like that, certainly, than there were a couple of years ago.
I do. So in terms of how I survey the market, and media and entertainment and creative projects are part of that big view that we have of the world. But then again, on the other side are digital and technology companies. We want to have the next Amazon, and we also want to have the next, Charlotte Tilbury, because we also do health, education, and lifestyle. When I think about the future, I think disruption is here to stay, and I believe that disruption is a necessary part of every business model, and creative producers need to have that as part of their thinking. When we look and we're saying, what are the disruptive forces that are happening? The entertainment business, there is more money made from gaming than there is made from music, movies,
and film, isn't it? Put
combined.
Together.
I mean, so you're talking about the manner in which people are engaging with content. I'm not confident that there are a lot of very, very young people who think about content differently versus a lens-based, a screen-based broadcast as they do a sort of a screen-based interactive immersive experience in gaming. So if I don't talk to organizations, and if we are not talking to producers and production companies that are saying, so what does that mean for what I'm doing? I want to tell stories. I want to tell good stories. That's what I hear every day. I'm sorry. I don't mean to minimize and trivialize that to you all, but that's sort of table stakes, right? Why would you ever get in the business if you didn't want to tell good stories? Who says I want to tell horrible stories? Everyone does that. So then the question is, and so how are those stories being ingested? How are they being engaged with? How are they actually being involved with the populations who are then looking at them? And are these populations domestic populations, or are they ones that can influence the world, maybe someday even the universe? That's what we're looking for. So when I think about that, I'm thinking about disruption, and I'm thinking about disruptors who want to sort of take along with their content and story and fantastic storytelling, the modes and methods by which those stories get conveyed. I need to partner around those things also. That's the interesting bit for us. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Wayne, does that make it, is that not really relevant in a way? But it will become relevant as you begin to evolve a model that works with production financing, a more case-by-case.
I think my approach would always be to back the production companies, producers, and I guess, look, I don't know enough about development within the television arena. I don't know about whether or not developing in a vacuum without the broadcaster or streamer involved is a benefit or makes it easier and more exciting to sell it in an auction environment when it's there, or actually getting someone on board early in the process where they get some ownership in the project actually is good. I don't have any data or experience to know right from wrong there. I can tell you from the film industry, increasingly getting a buy-in from a studio, streamer or broadcaster, what I'm seeing is more often than not, they want to be part of that development process. They want to be having their voice heard about casting, story, or whatever. Disney, for example, if they're not part of that early process, it's nearly impossible to license to them later. But maybe in TV, it works differently. I would just like the creatives and the producers who do this every day to do what they do best, and we just want to be a financial source of financing to help you
a tool
do that, a tool, and not be just be an efficient way of sourcing capital if it fits the parameters of Pipe. And Pipe is never going to be the risk money on the way in with the development capital. It's not going to be the production financing that's also going to take a risk on will it sell, will it do well enough? Will it perform? We're always going to be the low-cost, super efficient, accelerating of cash when you have an asset there that is ready to be monetized. And that's our very specific niche. And I know it may seem a bit funny and silly that that's all it is, but actually the market is, tens of billions of dollars. We're a very low margin but high volume play. We do just want to stay in our lane, stay really focused, and just give and design the best product. So you can literally come to us today, get a quote by dinner, and have the money in your bank in a week. And no one I've ever met can do that. And that's what we do.
Yeah, so it's really slick. And Rob?
Yeah, around disruption, I think, at our side we all work very hard. You guys all work very hard. I think where the disruption needs to take place is actually probably how the broadcasters interact with the production companies and the funders, because not a lot has changed. It feels on that side, yet the market, is changing. It's growing. It's hugely successful, the sector that we work in. It's so much so that we're beginning to attract funders into the sector, not just us, just in general. The sector's attracting funders that wouldn't normally consider the sector. But the real block is, I think broadcasters, I hope I don't offend anyone here, they're used to having their own way because they pick and choose what, the content that they have. And so that, 2 years ago I was working with a lovely little production company, and they got commissioned to do some work with Sky. Sky wouldn't give them a contract. So how are they supposed to go out and raise money when there's no contract to raise money against?
And decision making as well. We were just talking earlier about the length of time for a decision to be made.
So whoever the broadcaster is, I think they probably need to examine their processes for commissioning. Probably streamlining the process, making it faster, making it more accurate. And I think they have to be prepared to cough up these contracts earlier, especially if they know the company that's producing the work and they've, had projects with them before. And then if it's someone new, be courageous. Instead of always trying to make someone else be courageous. They want the production company to be courageous. They want me putting my 5 million in to be courageous. They should be courageous too.
Does anybody want to take that message to them? Listen, I can see that we're about to run out of time. So can I just give each of you a quick moment to sort of say, for the future, next goals, what are you focused on in the near future?
I think like all of the panelists, what we're focusing on is thinking how we expand on what we're doing. It's great that we are able to get people to the writing room. That's exactly what we do. We have everything ready to go to the writing room. We don't want you to have any sort of misstep or any sort of delay before you actually get to start writing those final scripts to finish up your first season. We want to be able to do that. But then we also want to be able to do some deficit financing. So what we don't do right now is we don't then go on to the next level in production and say we're going to fund the entire project. And in fact, there are cases in which we would take it out a completely finished series and sell the completely finished series as opposed to beginning. But we'll be doing that over time. You'll be hearing about that over time.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Wayne?
So ultimately, in the next few years, I want to be a platform that can finance anything around a production, whether it be a full production, properly, if there's a way to do development, tax credits and contractual receivables, and give access to global financiers who don't get access to this asset class, who don't have a way of finding you and seeing what the opportunity is, and using the marketplace that Pipe is building to provide opportunities for all sorts of production financing and maybe even company financing around IP. That's a big ask, and that's why we're starting with a really simple, completed and delivered asset with a contracted revenue. That is definitely the long-term game of Pipe Entertainment. There's a lot of hurdles to go through there, and obviously the cost of that capital will vary significantly based on risk profile. But yeah, I think in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the approach would be to build a platform that allows content owners, creators, producers to be able to basically source capital from multiple sources at a super efficient price and process to fund their business and productions.
Brilliant. Rob?
Yeah, I suppose, New World Film Finance, we would like to grow a little bit, but not too much. We would like to continue to operate in the way that we are and have in place a model which is easy for producers to follow and easy to engage with and makes sense and is simple. And then also as part of that process working with production companies and with broadcasters, try and innovate in the way that I was just saying, innovate the process a little bit, because it does need to change because the market's changing.
Thank you, guys. You're all brilliant.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed the panel. TellyCast was heroically edited by Ian Chambers and recorded at Lincoln's Inn in London on the 26th of April. Until next week's show, as always, stay safe.
Global producers, distributors, and rights holders, why are you waiting for license fee payments from your productions, both new and back catalogue? Pipe buys your entertainment receivables and turns it into upfront capital immediately. Pipe can help you pull forward up to 5 years worth of contracted license fees from all the major streamers and broadcasters, so you can use the capital to produce more, acquire more, finance more, and grow your business on your own terms. Sign up today at pipe.com/entertainment. That's pipe.com/entertainment and start fast forwarding your receivables now.